See here. So in the previous class, we clearly discussed about what is Java, what is the purpose of Java, and what are the features of Java. In the features, we discussed only first one. So what is Java? Java is a general purpose, high level, object oriented programming language. When it was officially announced in the 1995, but the first version released in the 1996. So James Gosling and his team developed this Java language. So this James Gosling played major role in the development of Java. He played lead role in the development of Java. So that's why we are calling him as the father of Java. So James Gosling is the father of Java. So he was employee of Sun Microsystems. So James Gosling and his team developed this Java language. So initially this Java was the product of Sun Microsystems. But later in the 2010, Oracle company purchased this Sun Microsystems. So now Java is the product of Oracle company, not Sun Microsystems. So this Java is the general purpose programming language because using this Java, we can develop many kinds of applications. So general purpose programming language means using one language, we can develop many kinds of applications. Specific purpose programming language means using one language, we can develop one kind of application only. So according to the number of kinds of applications, we can divide the programming languages into two types. One is specific purpose programming languages. Another one is general purpose programming languages. Okay, just a minute. See, so general purpose programming language means using one language, we can develop many kinds of applications. So using Java, we can develop many kinds of applications like standalone applications, web applications, and mobile applications. So standalone applications means the applications like media players, okay, Acrobat Reader, Photoshop, okay, Calculator, Notepad. Okay, such type of applications are standalone applications. These are developed to run in one computer. So if you want to use that application, we must install in the computer. So the application developed to run in one computer. Okay, if multiple users wants to run this application, all those users must install that application. So every user must install this application. So the application that is developed to run in one computer is called standalone application. Okay, next web applications means websites. We can develop the websites. So this application published in remote system. This application published in remote system, but that can be accessed by many clients with the help of network and browser. So website is published in the remote system. Like Oracle.com website published in the remote system. Gmail.com website published in the remote system. But worldwide, so many users are accessing that application with the help of browser and internet connection. So such type of applications are called web applications. We can develop web applications and we can also develop mobile applications. Mobile applications means the applications developed to run in small devices. Okay, what are the small devices like smartphones, tabs, routers, set-top boxes? So in such type of devices, we can run our Java applications. Such applications are called mobile applications. Okay, so regularly we are using several apps on our mobile. Okay, so those are considered mobile applications like phone pay, GPay, Paytm, okay, WhatsApp. Okay, these are mobile applications. And what are the features of Java? These are the features of Java. Java is the platform independent programming language. This Java is the mission independent programming language. It is a pure object oriented programming language. It is a compiled and interpreted programming language. It is a robust programming language. It is a secured programming language. It is a distributed programming language. Java is dynamic programming language, portable programming language. It is a multi-threaded programming language. It is a simple and familiar programming language, and Java provides high performance. These are the major features of Java. Among this, first one is what? Platform independency. Platform independency. Yesterday we clearly discussed it. Okay. Now let me give brief explanation on uh, platform independency. After that, I will explain remaining features. Just a minute. So see here.
Hello.
Yes,
Excuse me, sir.
yes,
Sir, I have a query. Sir, what is bytecode?
bytecode.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I will explain. See, see now, listen the class, you will understand. So yesterday's class, once again I'm repeating. So I'm giving overview on this feature. So now see, in this I will explain what is bytecode. So this is the execution process of a C program. So in the previous class also I explained. See, so this is the C program. We are writing source code here. This is source code. Okay, so the program, this is the C program. So the code which is in the program we are calling as source code. So this program we are writing, computer cannot understand it. This is high level language. Computer cannot understand it. So after compilation, so computer cannot understand this code. So we are compiling here. We are compiling. Okay. So after compilation, it is generating another file. In that file contains native code, or you can say machine code, which can be understood by the operating system. This is operating system's understandable code. Once again, I'm repeating. This is a C program. After compilation, it will generate the exe file. After compilation, it will generate the exe file. This exe file contains what? Machine code. This can be understood by the operating system only. Okay, let me show it practically. See here. Okay, I'm showing it practically. Observe. I'm writing one simple C program here. I'm writing one simple C program. Okay, so this is the C program to print hello. This is a C program to print hello. So in the edit plus directly by default it came. So this is the C program. Okay, or I want to print a hi. Instead of printing hello world, I'm printing hi. Okay, or welcome to Durgasoft. Welcome to Durgasoft. I'm writing. So this is one C program. So this code is called source code. I'm saving this source code now. File new. Sorry, save. I'm creating one new folder for our batch. Okay, so I'm giving file name as Java 6 PM. Folder name as Java 6 PM. So in this, I want to store. So I'm giving file name as uh, just a minute. Yes, I'm giving file name as hi.c. Hi.c. Okay. So now observe where it is saved in the F drive. What is the folder name? Folder name is Java 6 PM. So in the Java 6 PM, this is called source code file. This is the source code file. Okay, C language source code file. Now I want to compile this one. So open the command prompt. Okay, so go to the program location. Go to the program location. So cd Java 6 PM. Okay, now I want to compile this program. Observe carefully in the background or how many files are there? Only one file is there. After compilation, two files will be created. For compilation, which command we use? GCC command. What is the file name? Hi.c. Okay, so we want to create output file. So to create output file, we use the option -o. Okay, then write hi.exe. Now exe file will be created. So hi.c is the source code file. Here we are compiling. GCC means GNU C compiler. We are compiling the C program by using the command GCC command. So after compilation, what it will create? This exe file will be created. Observe in the background only one file is there. Now when I press enter key, now two files will be created. In the background, observe another file is created. See here, this is called exe file. Right click and see the properties. So this is called exe file. So with this, we can understand that when we compile the C program, directly it generates the exe file. Remember this. Okay. So here, this is the hi.c program. After compilation, what it is creating? Exe file. This exe file contains what? Machine code. That exe file contains machine code, which can be understood by the operating system. So operating system runs this exe file now. Now operating system runs this exe file. So to run this exe file, you simply give the exe file name. Now operating system, MS-DOS operating system is running this application. Hi exe file now. That is printing welcome to Durgasoft here. Okay. So after compilation, what it is creating? Exe file. That exe file contains what? Machine code. So in my system, Windows 10 operating system is there. So that's why this exe file contains Windows 10 machine code. This high exe file contains high application exe file contains Windows 10 machine code. If I want to run this application in another system which has Windows 10, just simply I take this exe file, and I place in the another system. Now, can I run? Yes, I can run. Why? Because this exe file has Windows 10 native code. So Windows 10 native code can be understood by Windows 10. So you can run. But here for another system is there. This system has Linux operating system. Okay. So I'm placing this exe file here. Now can I run? No, I cannot. Because this exe file has Windows 10 native code. Windows 10 native code cannot be understood by Linux. So we cannot run here. Similarly, here this system has Unix operating system. I want to
Sir,
run
can
this
you run?
exe file. Yes.
Sir, can you run the exe file in Windows 7?
So if say yes, Windows versions same, if same operating system you can run. Okay. So for
Okay.
example, sometimes so versioning problem may occur. Sometimes versioning problem may occur. See, Windows 7 is the lowest version. Windows 10 is the highest version. So you can run Windows 7 app in the Windows 10. But Windows 10 app, sometimes you can run, some apps you can run, some apps you may not run. Okay. Versioning problem may occur.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
So Windows 7 applications we can run on Windows 10, but Windows 10 applications, so maybe we can run or we may not be run because versioning problem may occur. So Windows 10 is highest version, advanced version than Windows 7. So advanced features will be there for the Windows 10. Okay, that depends on the program and source code. Okay, so here on with this we can understand that the C program is depending on operating system. So this exe file contains the machine code which can be understood by the operating system. So this C application is depending on operating system. So in the same operating system you can run. In the different operating system you cannot run. Okay, so that's why we are calling C language as the platform dependent programming language, whereas Java is the platform independent. Java is the platform independent programming language. We are calling Java as the platform independent programming language. So why? See here. So after compilation of Java program, it creates bytecode. Okay, so this bytecode means that is one intermediate code generated after compilation. This is bytecode means that is one intermediate code generated by the compiler after compilation. Okay, so this is one new concept. Intermediate code concept came to make the languages platform independent. So this Java's intermediate code is called bytecode. So bytecode means this is one intermediate code. After compiling the Java program, Java compiler translates source code to the bytecode. That is one type of code, one type of intermediate code, middle code. Okay, so here we are writing the Java program. We are calling this as the source code. This is the source code. So I'm writing source code. I'm placing that in one particular file. I'm storing with hi.java. So to compile this, we use Java C command, Java compiler. So Java compiler translates this source code to the intermediate code. That intermediate code is called bytecode in Java. Whereas in the .NET, we call that as IL code, intermediate language code. In the Python, we call this as bytecode. So simply bytecode means this is one intermediate code, okay, which is generated by the compiler. Java compiler is translating source code to the byte code. Okay, so byte code means this is intermediate code which is generated by the Java compiler. So compiler translates source code to the byte code. So that byte code placed in one particular file. For this file, for the bytecode file, extension is dot class in Java. So it takes main method's class name here. So now no one can understand this bytecode. No one can understand this bytecode except JVM. No one can understand this bytecode except JVM. So that's why who is responsible to run the Java application? JVM is responsible. What is JVM? JVM stands for Java Virtual Machine. It is a special software to run the Java applications. In the platform independent programming languages, we use special software to run the applications. Okay, say for example, just a minute, system is slow. Okay, see, so after compilation, Java compiler translating source code to the bytecode. Okay, so who is responsible to run this bytecode? JVM is responsible. So JVM translates this bytecode to the machine code according to the operating system installed in that system. Now, for example, this system has Windows 10. So now JVM translates bytecode into the machine code according to the Windows 10. According to the Windows 10, this machine code will be generated. Okay, now if we want to run this Java application in another system, just a minute, please wait, system is slow. Yes. So now I want to run this Java application in the system which has Windows 10, same operating system. So if same operating system is there, just simply take this bytecode file and place here. Who is responsible to run this bytecode? JVM. So we must install JVM. So JVM translates this bytecode to the machine code. JVM translates bytecode to the machine code. So that machine code file we are calling as executable file. Exe file will be created. That exe file contains Windows 10 machine code. So Windows 10 machine code can be understood by operating system. So we can run. For example, here this is another operating system. Linux operating system is there. This application developed in Windows 10 operating system. Now I want to run this Java application on different operating system. Now also same steps we follow. Take this bytecode file, place here. Operating system is not responsible to run this bytecode file. JVM is responsible. Operating system is not responsible here. JVM is responsible. So JVM translates this bytecode to the machine code according to the Linux. Now I want to run in another computer which has Unix. Simply take this bytecode file and place it here. Okay, so JVM translates this bytecode to the machine code. This file contains Unix machine code. So who is responsible to run the Java application? JVM. So here in C, C++, such type of programming languages, after compilation that generates exe file. In platform dependent programming languages, after compilation directly it generates exe file. In platform independent programming languages, after compilation it will generate intermediate code files. In Java we are calling that as bytecode file. So intermediate code will be generated. Okay, bytecode will be generated in the Java. Okay, let me show it practically. Okay, so see here, I'm writing one Java program. Even if you don't understand, no problems. Just I want to show you how bytecode file will be generated. I want to write one Java program here. Okay, I want to show it practically. So I'm opening one Java file here. Yes, I'm giving class name as hi. Hi is the class name. Here, this is the printing statement. I want to print, yes, welcome to Durgasoft. I want to print welcome to Durgasoft. Okay, so this is the program. This is the Java program. We write like this. I want to save this program. So I'm saving this program in our folder Java 6 p.m. Just now we created. So hi.java. Hi.java. I'm saving this one. So Java program successfully saved. I'm compiling, observe. So I'm opening our folder Java 6 PM. Observe carefully here. So in the background, how many files are there? 3 files are there. Okay, so this is our source code file, Java source code file, Java file. So this is C source code, C exe file. Okay, just now we created that. Okay, now this one is what? This one is the Java file. So Java source code file. I want to compile. Okay, so to compile the Java program, which command we have to use? Java C, Java compiler we are using. So Java compiler, give the source code file name hi.java, hi.java. So now it now hi file has source code. This is called source code. The code which we are writing in the program is called source code. This source code will be translated into the bytecode. Now when I press enter key, one bytecode file will be created with the main method's class name. Here main method's class name is what? Hi. So with the hi name, bytecode file will be created. Observe in the background. I'm pressing enter key. Observe here another file is created. Hi.class file is created. Now this class file is called bytecode file. This is called bytecode file. Dot class is the extension. Dot class is the extension of this bytecode file. It contains bytecode. It contains bytecode. We cannot understand it. We cannot understand it. This code is called bytecode, intermediate code. No one can understand this code. Okay. So, so bytecode means this is the intermediate code generated by the Java compiler. So Java compiler translates source code to the bytecode. Now this is called bytecode. No one can understand this bytecode except JVM. So now who is responsible to run this bytecode? JVM is responsible. So JVM is responsible. Okay. So to run this Java application, what I'm doing is I'm using Java command. So Java hi I'm writing. So now that bytecode will be translated into the machine code that will be placed in the exe file. See here output came. So this is the execution process of a Java program. So with this we can understand that after compilation directly it is not creating the exe file, it is generating one intermediate file. In Java we are calling that as the bytecode. Okay, so if you want to run the Java application on another system which has same operating system or different operating system, just simply take this bytecode file and place in that system. Okay, to run that JVM is required. So JVM translates bytecode to the machine code according to the operating system and microprocessor in that system. Okay, so that's why this Java is the platform independent. Java is the platform independent programming language. Now, so I hope you understood. Yesterday also we clearly discussed. Now also I clearly explained. Uh, now see the next feature. Next feature is machine independent. I'm calling this Java as the machine independent programming language. So why Java is the machine independent programming language? See here. So this is also important feature. Very, very important feature. So machine independent means the application developed in Java can run on many machines, not only computer. We can run on many machines. So the application software, the software developed, application developed in Java language. The application developed in Java can run on many machines. Many machines. What are those many machines like? Okay, we can run on smartphones. We can run Java application on smartphones. We can run Java applications on tabs. We can run Java applications on routers. We can run Java application on Blu-ray DVD players. Blu-ray DVD players. Okay, or we can run on set-top boxes. Set-top boxes. We can run on remote controls, smart cards, in the ATM machines, smart cards, ATM machines. So like this, ATM machines, PDS, like this on billions of devices. We can run Java application on billions of devices. Whereas C, C++, the application developed in C, C++, we can run on computer only. The software developed in C, C++, we can run on computer only. We cannot run on many devices. So that's why we are calling C, C++ or the uh, mission dependent programming languages, whereas this Java is the mission independent. Okay, actually the main aim of Java is Java application should be run on any mission. That is the main goal, because Sun Microsystems got a project from one electronic devices company. So their intention was they wanted to run that application on different missions. So actually Java developed on this goal only. Java developed based on two goals. One is platform independency, another one is mission independency. Okay, so C, C++ languages are the platform dependent programming languages and mission dependent programming language. See, the application, the software developed in C, C++ can run on computer only. We cannot run on many devices. But whereas by using Java, we are developing the applications. So those applications we can run on small devices like smartphones, tabs, routers, like this on billions of devices we can run the Java application. So that's why we are calling Java as the mission independent programming language. So Java is the platform independent. We can run on any operating system on any microprocessor. And Java is the mission independent programming language on many devices, on billions of devices. We can run Java application. So this is the second feature. Then what is the third feature here? So third feature is this Java is the pure object oriented programming language. So I'm calling Java as the pure object oriented programming language. So Java is the pure object oriented programming language. See here. So this Java is pure object oriented programming language. See, object oriented programming languages means, see, in the 1950s, the 1950s, the 1950s, in MIT, MIT is one private university, that is one research institute. Okay, MIT stands for Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Massachusetts. Okay, Massachusetts Massachusetts Institute of Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Massachusetts Institute of Technology. This is one private university. That private university, that is one research institute, introduced OOPS concepts in the 1950s, in the late 1950s. So in late 1950s, this Massachusetts Institute of Technology introduced object-oriented programming concepts. So they introduced some concepts. They did research and they introduced some concept, object-oriented programming concepts. Okay. So what are the major concepts here? The major concepts are encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. So these are the concepts. So if any language that supports to these four concepts, if any language that supports to encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism, that language is called object oriented programming language. So based on these OOPS concepts, first object oriented programming language developed in the 1960s, that is Simula language. Simula language developed in 1960s, introduced in 1960s. Later in the 1980s, based on Simula language and C language, C++ language was introduced. The C++ is the object-oriented programming language. So all these are examples of object-oriented programming languages. Object-oriented programming languages. Okay, so when this Simula language was introduced in the 1960s. So this was the first object-oriented programming language. And later in the 1980s, based on the C language and similar language, another language developed, that is C++ language. This is also object oriented programming language. Okay, but whereas this Java introduced in 1995, so Java announced in 1995. So this is also object oriented programming language. So object oriented programming language means if any language that supports to the four concepts: encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. If any language that supports to these four concepts, those languages are called object oriented programming languages. So all these languages support these four concepts: encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. Okay, so that's why we are calling them as the object oriented programming languages. But I'm calling this Java is the pure object oriented programming language, whereas C++ is not pure object oriented programming language. So C++ language is not pure object oriented. It's not pure object oriented. Whereas this Java language is pure object oriented programming language. Java is the pure object oriented programming language. Then why Java is the pure object oriented? Why C++ is not pure object oriented? So I'm calling Java is the pure object oriented programming language. C++ is not pure object oriented programming language. So just now I told that object oriented programming language means if any language supports to encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. So what are these terms? Every point I will clearly explain in the OOPS concept chapter, in the objects and classes chapter. I clearly explain each and every point clearly. Okay, so just try to understand. If any language that supports to encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism, that is object oriented programming language. So C++ supports to these four concepts, Java supports to these four concepts. So C++ is the object oriented programming language, Java is also object oriented programming language. But C++ is not pure object oriented programming language, whereas Java is the pure object oriented programming language. Why? Listen carefully. See, as per object oriented programming standards, as per object oriented programming rules, as per object oriented programming standards rules, each and every member should be defined inside of the class. Each and every member should be defined. Each and every member should be defined inside of the class. Okay, so every member should be defined inside of the class. But whereas in C++, we can write like this. I'm writing one class A. In the class, I'm defining some properties and methods. So outside of the class, if I want to declare the variable, I can declare like this. And outside of the class, if I want to write the function, I can write like this. And main method also, we are writing main method outside of the class only. So as per object oriented programming standards, what is the rule here? Each and every member should be defined inside of the class. Here X is the member variable. Okay, X is the variable. We are defining outside of the class. So X we are defining outside of the class here. This F1 is the function. I'm defining outside of the class. Okay, main function I'm defining outside of the class. So outside of the class also we can define the functions and variables in C++. So that's why C++ is not pure object oriented. So in C++, we can define the members outside of the class. So outside of the class A, here I'm defining X member, F1 member, main member. So outside of the class, we can define the members. So C++ is not object oriented. So why C++ is not object oriented? Because in C++, we can define the members. We can define the members, means variables or functions. We can define the members outside of the class. Outside of the class. So that's why we are calling C++ is not pure object oriented. Okay. So we can write in the form of functions. We can write in the form of classes. In both styles, we can write C++ program. Combination also you can use. Okay. So outside of the class, we can define the members. So that's why C++ is not pure object oriented. Whereas Java is the pure object oriented. We define each and every member instead of the class. Without a class, we cannot write the Java program. So whereas in Java, we define each and every member. Okay, each and every member inside of the class. Each and every member inside of the class. Okay, including main method also. In C++, we write main method outside of the class. In Java, including main method inside of the class.
Hello, hello, hello. Hello. So your voice is lagging, sir. Hello. Hello.
Hello, hello. Am I audible? Anyone please confirm? Am I audible? Okay, okay. So network problem. Sorry. See, I'm continuing. See, so we are discussing about pure object oriented. So this C++ is not pure object oriented, whereas Java is the pure object oriented. Yes,
Hello.
yes, yes, Pankaj.
Sir, your voice is lagging.
Now, is it okay? Now, is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. See here. See, listen. So, okay, look. The C++ is not pure object oriented, whereas Java is pure object oriented. Because in the C++, we can define the variables, functions outside of the class also. So that's why the C++ is not pure object oriented. Whereas this Java is a pure object oriented. In Java, we define each and every member inside of the class. We cannot define the members outside of the class. You cannot declare the variable outside of the class. Each and every member we define inside of the class only. So that's why Java is the pure object oriented. C++ is not pure object oriented. I hope you understood. Next one is this Java is the compiled and interpreted programming language. Listen carefully. So Java is the compiled and interpreted programming language. So I'm calling Java is a compiled and interpreted programming language. Compiled and interpreted, both compiled and interpreted programming language. So till Java 2 version, till Java 1.2 version. So 1.0, 1.1, 1.2. So till Java 1.2 version, Java was interpreted programming language. Java was interpreted programming language. Till Java 1.2 version, Java was interpreted programming language. In Java 1.3, in Java 1.3 version, they added JIT compiler to the JVM's execution engine. I already told who is responsible to run the Java application? JVM. JVM stands for Java Virtual Machine. JVM stands for Java Virtual Machine. Java Virtual Machine. This is one software. JVM is a special software. JVM is a software used to run the Java applications. Used to run the Java applications. So to run the Java applications, we are using one special software that is called JVM. So this JVM has execution engine. So JVM has execution engine. That execution engine executes our code. This execution engine translates bytecode to the machine code. So this execution engine has initially till 1.2 version only interpreter was there. Only interpreter was there. So that's why till Java 1.2 version, Java was the interpreted programming language. But in Java 1.3 version, they added a compiler. That compiler is called a JIT compiler. That compiler is called JIT compiler. JIT stands for just in time. So JIT compiler added to the JVM's execution engine. In which version? In the Java 1.3 version. In the Java 1.3 version, to the JVM's execution engine, they added JIT compiler. So now 1.3 version onwards, this Java became both compiled and interpreted programming language. Then why they added this JIT compiler? To improve the performance of the Java application. So to
So what
improve
is
the
the full
Java,
form of JIT?
just in time, just in time.
Okay,
So
sir.
JIT stands for just in time. That's one name. Okay, just in time compiler. So this JIT compiler added to the JVM's execution engine. So from Java 1.3 version onwards, this Java became both compiled and interpreted programming language. Okay, so in Java 3.1.3 version, JIT compiler, JIT compiler is added. JIT compiler was added. So JIT compiler was added to improve the performance, to improve the performance of Java application. So to improve the performance of Java application, they added JIT compiler. Once again, I'm repeating. So this Java is both compiled and interpreted programming language. So initially, when Java was introduced, at that time, Java was interpreted programming language. But from Java 1.3 version onwards, this Java became compiled and interpreted programming language, because in the Java 1.3 version, they added JIT compiler to the JVM's execution engine. So initially it was only interpreted programming language. So interpreter performance is low in case of loops, in case of recursion. In so many cases, this interpreter performance is very low. So to improve the performance, they added this JIT compiler to the JVM's execution engine. So some code will now Java is both interpreted and JIT compiler. So that bytecode, see, so JVM translates bytecode to the machine code. So some bytecode will be taken by the interpreter, some bytecode will
Sir,
be
what
taken
is
by the JIT compiler.
interpreter?
Interpreter is one translator.
Okay, sir.
Interpreter is one translator. Our language is high level language. Okay, so computer language is low level language. Computer cannot understand. Computer language is low level language, like 1001, like this. Our language is high level language. We are writing English like words. So to print the data, we are writing like this. Print ln, like this we are writing. So our language is high level language. Computer language is low level language. So computer cannot understand our language. So that's why we are using one translator, interpreter. Both interpreter is the translator, compiler is the translator. Both are translators. Compiler and interpreter both are translators. They translates high level code to the low level code. Okay. So sometimes interpreter works faster, sometimes compiler works faster. So our language is high level language, computer language is low level language. We cannot understand computer language, computer cannot understand our language. So communication gap is occurring. So that's why we are using the translators, compiler and interpreter. They are translating high level code to the low level code. Okay. So here in the JVM, this interpreter and JIT compiler, they translate bytecode to the machine code. So some code will be taken by the interpreter, some code will be taken by the JIT compiler. So code will be distributed among interpreter and compiler. If loops are there, recursion is there, compiler works faster. If single statements are there, interpreter works faster. So some code will be given to the interpreter, some code will be given to the compiler. So hence Java's application performance will be Java applications performance will be improved. Okay. So because of this JIT compiler, Java application performance is improved. So this is about compiled and interpreted. Okay. So next feature, after explaining this, I stop the session. So I'm calling this Java is the robust programming language. I'm calling Java is the robust. Java is the robust programming language. So robust means strong. Robust means strong. So this Java is the strong programming language. We are calling Java is the strong programming language because of two reasons. What are those two reasons? First one is automatic memory management is there. Automatic memory management. Automatic memory management is there. And next one is exception handling feature is there. Because of these two features, because of these two reasons, this Java, we are calling Java is the strong programming language. Then what is the concept of this automatic memory management? In C++, in C++, okay, we are allocating the memory means we have to destroy the memory. You know about dynamic memory allocation. So allocating memory at runtime, dynamic memory allocation. Allocating memory at runtime is called dynamic memory allocation. In C++, we are allocating the memory means we must destroy the memory. So if you are allocating the memory by using new keyword means you must destroy by using the delete operator in C++. Okay, whereas in C language you are allocating the memory by using malloc function. To allocate the memory we use malloc function in C. So if you are allocating the memory by using malloc function means you must destroy the memory by using free. So we are allocating the memory means we must destroy the memory. That is the responsibility of the programmer in C++. So automatic memory management is not there in C++, whereas in Java, automatic memory management is there. Automatic memory management feature is available. Automatic memory management memory management feature is available. Automatic memory management feature is available. Okay, so in the JVM there is garbage collector is there. This garbage collector removes unwanted objects. Garbage collector removes unwanted objects. Okay, unreferenced objects, unwanted objects will be removed. Okay, for example, here some object is there, student object is there. Assume that this is a student object. Student roll number is 15. Student name is Ramu. So this object is created. This object's reference is in the variable s1. So now s1 has this memory locations address, memory locations reference. Now what I'm writing is s1 equals to, I'm writing null. Now this reference will be gone. Okay, now s1 value is null, so s1 is not pointing to this memory location. So now this is a unwanted object. Now this is unreferenced object. Okay, so if this memory location's address is in the s1, then that is referenced object. So this object's reference is in the s1. But now I'm writing one statement, s1 equals to null, means it is unreferenced now. This memory location's address is not in the s1. So now this is unreferenced object, unwanted object. So if there is no memory sufficient, in such type of situations, garbage collector automatically removes this object. This object will be destroyed automatically by the garbage collector. So garbage collector removes such type of unreferenced objects. Okay, so unreferenced objects will be automatically removed by the garbage collector. We are not responsible. So when the program is terminated, automatically all the temporary objects will be removed. So that is the duty of garbage collector. So with this, so much memory will be saved. Whereas in C, C++, you are allocating the memory, and if you forgot to destroy the memory, means some memory will be wasted. Whereas in case of Java, automatic memory management is there. So unreferenced objects will be removed automatically. We are not responsible for destroying the memory. So everything will be taken care by the JVM. JVM is responsible to run the Java application. JVM has garbage collector. That garbage collector removes unwanted objects. So automatic memory management will be done by the garbage collector. So that's why we are calling this as the strong programming language. Before this Java, this feature was not there. This garbage collector feature was not there. Automatic memory management feature was not there. And next, this Java supports to the exception handling mechanism. Exception handling means, so it is also very important feature. It is also great feature of the Java. Okay, so this Java is providing so many exception clauses to handle the runtime errors. So the mechanism of handling runtime errors, is called exception handling. Okay, so exception means runtime error. There are two types of errors. For example, I'm writing a program here. Int x equals to 5, y equals to 10. I'm writing like this. So to separate two variables, we have to use comma. If you don't write comma, compiler will give error. This is compile time error. If you don't write semicolon here, compiler will give error. So compiler checks syntax mistakes. Okay, so there is no problem with this syntax with compile time errors. So compiler shows them, we can correct them, no problem at all. But runtime errors are very dangerous. We must handle them. So the mechanism of handling runtime errors is called exception handling. For example, here 100 lines code is there. Okay, so first line, second line, like this 100 lines code is there. Okay, 100 lines code is there. This is 100 lines code. At 50th line, so this, assume that this is 50th line. At 50th line, okay, some runtime error occurred. So when you are dividing with the 0, runtime error will occur. So when there is no sufficient memory, runtime error will occur. Okay, so when array index is out of range, runtime error will occur. So like this, some cases are there. Runtime error may occur. So at 50th line, some runtime error is occurring. Runtime error is occurring. So what is the problem with the runtime error? So we are running the application that is executing the code, that is executing this 100 lines code. So at 50th line, some runtime error occur. So when runtime error occurs, two problems will occur. When runtime error occurs, two problems will be there. What are those two problems? First problem is application will be terminated in the middle of execution. Application will be terminated. Application will be terminated. This is the first problem. And this remaining code will not get executed. At 50th line, runtime error occur means our application execution will be stopped here. Execution will be stopped here. It will not execute remaining code. So remaining code will not get executed. So remaining code will not be executed. So these two problems occur with the runtime errors. So our application will be closed in the middle of execution. So remaining code will not get executed. These are the two problems. Okay, so this is very inconvenient to the end user. So our client is using our application. He is running the application. So if we get any problem, he feel inconvenient. So to avoid this problem, we have to handle the runtime errors. So the mechanism of handling runtime errors is called exception handling. Now just now we got some problem. Now we are attending online session. We are using GoToTraining. So just now my network disconnected. So that has shown one message to me, network disconnected. This is the problem occurred at runtime. We are using GoToTraining application. That application showed me network disconnected. So with that I understood the problem. And again I reconnected. If that is not showing that message, okay, what if that is not showing that message and that closes the application in the middle of execution? So definitely user may feel inconvenient. He will not understand what is the problem and he cannot continue his work. User cannot understand what is the problem and he cannot continue his work. I will give another example. Okay, for example, you have one smartphone. That smartphone has 32 GB internal memory. You have one smartphone. That smartphone has 32 GB. Assume that the smartphone has 32 GB internal memory. No supporting card is there. No external memory. Memory cards are not there. Only 32 GB internal memory is there. Okay. Now that assume that the 32 GB memory is fully you used. So you stored movies, audio songs, video songs, some important documents. So the 32 GB memory is full. Now, if you are trying to take the selfie, can you take the selfie now? Can you take the selfie now? No, because memory is
No.
not sufficient. Yes. Okay, so 30 GB memory is full now. If you take the selfie, now that camera app displays one message to us. Camera app shows one message. Memory is full. Memory is full. This message will be displayed by the camera app. So now with this, you are understanding the problem here. This problem occurred at runtime. You are using the app now at runtime. So that is showing the message memory is full. So what you do, you remove some unwanted pics or unwanted files. You remove unwanted files. No memory will be there. Okay, now you take the selfie. So your problem is solved because they handle the runtime error. So when there is insufficient memory, runtime error will occur definitely. They handled it. So that's why we are not getting any problem. So if camera app developer didn't handle this one, what happens? When you take the selfie, camera app will be closed. When you take the selfie, camera app will be closed. You cannot understand what is the problem, or your mobile will be struck. Again, you restart. Okay, if you may feel inconvenient, this problem will occur. Okay, so that's why they handle the runtime error. That runtime error. So the mechanism of handling runtime errors is called exception handling. So this is about exception handling. So because of this exception handling, because of automatic memory management, we are calling Java as the robust programming language. Okay, so now I'm stopping the session. So just a minute. Yes. So in today's session, what we discussed very clearly about platform independency, machine independency, pure object oriented, compiled and interpreted, and robust. So see, I'm giving the overview. Platform independency means Java application we can run on any machine. Sorry, Java application we can run on any operating system and on any microprocessor. Machine independency means on many machines we can run Java application. Please be in note mode. Okay, pure object oriented means in Java we define each and every member inside of the class. That's why it is pure object oriented. Compiled and interpreted means JVM execution engine has compiler and JIT compiler and interpreter. Both are there. So that's why it is compiled and interpreted. Robust programming language means it is a strong programming language because of exception handling, runtime errors will be checked, and automatic memory management is there. So this is today's class. Okay. I hope you understood. So regarding today's session, if you have any doubts, you can ask. Yes. Yes. Any
No, sir,
doubts?
no doubts.
No doubts. Okay. Okay. Did you understand today's class? Please give the response in the chat box.
Yes, sir.
Okay. 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 Thanks to all. Okay. Shall I stop the session?
Yes, sir.
Yes. I'm stopping the session now. So tomorrow is a holiday, Sunday. So Sunday is a holiday. Okay. Next on Monday, I will explain these remaining features. Okay. Our class timings are 6 to 7. Okay. So log in at 6 o'clock. I will start the session at 6:05. Okay. Thanks to all. Meet you on Monday.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay, Pankaj.